Welcome to Veronica Live, and we are here. He has been on Veronica Live before, and his name is Scott McVeigh, and he has a new novel that has just come out on Amazon called King of the Jungle. And welcome back, Scott, to Veronica Live.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I definitely want to talk lots of politics. So, but first, we're going to talk about your novel, and what is the novel about, and why should we get it?
Well, it turns out the novel is actually about politics too. So, so this isn't so much
subject.
of a. Yeah, there you go. It's a satire. Essentially, I'll give you sort of the plot summary of this thing, which is it's about a red-pilled billionaire who runs afoul of a crazy, corrupt Democrat presidential administration and decides that he wants to build a Shangri-La in the jungle of Guyana just before the Venezuelans invade, right?
Oh my
and
gosh.
He decides he's going to fight it out, and like hijinks and hysterics ensue. But the book it's really a send up of modern American politics and government. And I wrote this thing in December and January, and so much of it has come true. It's not even funny.
I was going to say, is the billionaire based off of the Orange Man by chance,
Well, no, he's kind of a composite, but you'll smell some Elon Musk in there and some Eric Prince and some John McAfee and a few other things. But there is a Trumpian character in the book who is running for president. And a couple weeks ago, I guess it's 3 weeks ago now, totally freaked me out when what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, and about 85% of it was in King of the Jungle.
Oh my
gosh. There's an assassination attempt. The Trumpian character gets shot. It turns out there's a hole in the Secret Service coverage, and it's very suspicious. Like, I'm watching all of the stuff come out about what happened in Butler, and I'm like, well, that was page 196. It was like total. I mean, I thought I was going to get a knock on my door. I'm like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be a satire.
But
I'm a little too close to the real thing.
But Scott, you have friends, unlike the guy that tried to assassinate Trump. So, but oh my gosh, you can see the future. This is, it's been insane. So why did you decide to write a novel this time? Was this like heavy on your heart? Because I mean, you're a political guy who writes in the Spectator.
Well, yeah. I'd written a series of novels before I've written 2 political books, since then. But late last year, when the Venezuelans held this bogus referendum on whether they should annex Essequibo, which is basically the western 2/3 of Guyana, and that happens to be where all the oil and mineral wealth is. Melissa McKay, who's the publisher of the American Spectator, she and I were talking, and it just hit me, and I said, this would be an unbelievably good premise for a book. And, and she was like, yeah, it really would. And then before I knew it, I had the whole story outlined as to how it would go. And I said, look, if I write this, would y'all be interested in having it as a serialized thing at the American Spectator? Like, we drop it every Saturday. And she's like, absolutely, let's go for it. So, I did. And Spectator subscribers got to read this thing, as a serialized thing, almost like I was some sort of latter-day Charles Dickens writing it. And then in April, when we were finished serializing it at the American Spectator, I put it out as an actual novel on Amazon. And it's sold pretty well since, and the reviews on this thing have been really good. It's 4.8 stars on Amazon.
I saw that.
And,
I saw that on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Well, and then, so much is happening in Venezuela as well. So, oh my goodness, you definitely have crystal ball that you're looking through, Scott. So tell me, as we transition to politics, what does your crystal ball say for November? Because today now we've had, oh my gosh, it is trending, Tampon Tim. I can't even say that word because I'm a girl.
It's really good.
I'm a girl, and it makes me
that's one of the best ones.
Word, but I had to say it. And is he not like John's losing it? Is he not the worst pick? Because I was like, who is Tampon Tim? And oh my gosh, I'm like blown away.
Yeah.
He is awful. This woman is the stupidest woman known to man. I mean, it's been 2 weeks of shut your mouth, and then she picks this loser that looks 99, and now that we're, a man that wants to have tampons in a boy's bathroom, I've lost it. I've lost it, Scott. So tell me your prediction for November. Maybe we'll start there and then backtrack.
Well, let me get this out first, which is nobody can understand why this guy Waltz is the VP nominee, and I can explain it to you very simply. Nobody better would take the job. Plain and simple.
Well, I saw you put that on X.
Yeah, why ruin your political career, right?
Well, I'll explain it to you this way. So you had 2 examples of something that is never done, which is that both Roy Cooper, who's the governor of North Carolina, and Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, publicly declined to be vice president or on Harris's ticket. Okay, that's not what you do. All right, what you do is you say nothing. You tell them privately, then look, I'm out. I don't want to do it, and then just let somebody else get it. Like, you don't publicly rebuke the candidate as she's trying to pick the nominee. Like, you just don't do that. They both did it. Okay, so that's a big, serious. First of all, in Whitmer's case, I'm pretty sure it was a active sabotage because she wants to run for president in 2028. And, she doesn't want Harris to be the president in 2028 because, it's bad, right? So in that case, that's the reason why she did. But then, you get to Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly, who were both way better choices than Waltz.
Right.
And neither one of them are the guy. And it's obvious. Like in Kelly's case, he had this weird thing pop up, which is that he's invested in this Chinese company that makes balloons, like the spy balloons that came across. Like, that's a bad look, and I don't know how you spin that as the VP. Like, if you're running in a primary.
Though? I mean, his daughter obviously had drug issues. And so I thought, I don't know. I was chatting about that with my friend today. I thought he was the overall better pick because, he's been an astronaut. He's married to, I forgot the congresswoman that was shot in the head. And so he
Gabby
doesn't
Gifford.
like guns. And that guy seemed more normal. This guy seems completely radical.
But nobody knows who. Well, I thought Shapiro would have been the better pick myself.
Well, of course he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's zero political universe in which you pick Josh Shapiro over Tim Waltz. None. Okay? Shapiro probably gives you Pennsylvania, which you cannot win this election if you're Kamala Harris without Pennsylvania. And he more or less solves that problem. There's this whole thing about how he's Jewish, and we know that the Democrat Party today is, pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic. Like, we know that, okay? But that's not a reason why you would give up the state of Pennsylvania and pick Tim Waltz, all right?
Well, that's the reason
this was Shapiro's call.
Was because of the Hamas thing. She didn't want to partner with him because of that. And then I heard, too, he's 5'3", and they would look like 2 little runts behind a podium. So that was the joke I heard about that.
I thought
that's all true. But even still, just the plain electoral math, you pick Shapiro. The fact that he's not on this ticket, I'm telling you, it was his call. Okay? And there's a reason for this. It's the same reason as Gretchen Whitmer saying no. If I'm Josh Shapiro and I'm going to catch a bunch of heat from the pro-Hamas wing of that party, all right, the way out, because he sees himself as the future of the Democrat Party. Okay? And that means you run in 2028. And first of all, if you're on Kamala's ticket as the number 2, all right, if she loses, your political career is over, because being the number 2 on a losing presidential ticket is a political death sentence. I don't know how far back you got to go before you can find one of these people that actually survived that. But I mean, like, for the most part,
yeah.
you can't even tell me who Mike Dukakis's VP was, or Bob Dole's VP. I mean, some of these people are actually halfway distinguished folks.
I remember now.
Well, yeah, you go back.
The answers are Lloyd Benson and Jack Kemp, but like,
oh my gosh,
off the top of anybody's head, you'd never know. Like, the whole point is you become completely irrelevant, and that to Josh Shapiro, he might as well jump off a bridge than be that. So you get out of that, or if you win, okay, then you're the number 2 in Kamala Harris's administration, which everyone knows, including the Democrats, that is going to be a highly, highly unpopular, unsuccessful administration. And you will have the stink of that all over you, and you will not be able to recover from it. Like, period. Done, full stop. Or if I'm Shapiro, I wait, I let this thing crash and burn, and then I don't just get to be the nominee in 2028 if I run a good campaign. I get to control the party, which all of these people are waiting for Barack Obama to finally exit the scene, and he has not exited the scene. Barack Obama is still very much the puppet master of that party right now.
I agree.
And I can tell you, it's the reason all of these, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Shapiro or Whitmer or any of these other, these other guys out there, they want because in their state, they run the Democrat Party. They want to do that nationally. And right now, the only way you can get on a presidential ticket as a Democrat is you pay obeisance to Barack Obama, which they don't want to do. And that's why, it's Harris. They didn't have anybody step forward against Biden in the primaries. Like, in 2020, when he was still very much in control of the party, he picked both Biden and Harris. Like, these guys are waiting for Barack Obama to finally exit the scene. And my guess is you're going to see, like, Gretchen Whitmer is going to stay far away from Kamala Harris as soon as she starts getting political gravity working on her, which it will. There's still some of these kind of sugar high polls out there, but that's going to start melting away very quickly after the Democrats' convention. And they all know it.
What do you make of the leaked video from Friday then, where they showed Shapiro being selected? I mean, it was like, quote, accidentally leaked and supposed to have been put up on Monday. So was that a trial balloon?
Yes, I think that is a trial balloon. I think that was we're going to leak this and see if it'll get him excited that he'll say yes. And it didn't work because when they leaked it, you had the hard left go ballistic because, they don't want a Jewish guy and they don't want somebody who's seen as a moderate. And I think like it was a trial balloon that landed with a thud and they had to go in a different direction at that point. That's my theory, at least. I could be wrong, but I can tell you.
I have another theory. What about they show up at the convention and she's already crashed and burned, and then Michelle Obama appears on the scene? Is there any possibility it could be somebody else?
She's already been elected. She's already been elected this week.
Yeah, I think it's too late in the game for that.
She's nominated. It's a done deal.
I'll say this: if at any point Michelle Obama had signaled a willingness to do it, they would have thrown whatever they had in hand away for that. But, she just didn't want it. I mean, Michelle Obama has never been about the work.
No, she likes her billionaire lifestyle. So, but as a Dem, and I've been putting this on X, I would be so pissed off that I didn't even get to choose who I wanted. This was once again, like you said, an Obama pick.
Yeah. They really, honestly, that party needs a name change because there's nothing democratic about the Democratic Party.
They're the pagans.
Okay. They are. It's the pagan tyrant party is what they are, right? Like they're run by a Politburo, and the general secretary of the Politburo lives in Calorama and Martha's Vineyard. And they've done nothing to change that. There's like they are absolutely in stasis. It's the reason that they ran Joe Biden as this kind of centrist establishment figure, and he gets in office, and like they're going to take every single government agency and make it a radical, woke, indoctrinated, a monster that like eats the American people, basically. And nobody wanted any of this stuff. They talked about we're going to, this is going to be a return to norms and all of this stuff, and it's 10 times more radical even than Obama's administration was billed as. Although Obama like put the predicate in place for all the crazy radical stuff that the Biden administration has done, with a bunch of Obama alumni running all of the agencies and being in charge of the White House. Like this is very much how a communist country is run. Like we don't have a communist population, but we do have what looks like a communist government thanks to these people. And they're running a what looks like an American election, but probably more than half of the country is kind of just hoping that actually is what we have, and that this isn't some kind of sham deal that is we're just going through the motions of having an election.
I'll tell you what I think, Scott. I think it's a third order effect of stupid is what you have here. You had Obama, who was pretty smart politically, okay, and as a candidate, he was like Bill Clinton. You may not like him, but as a candidate, he knew how to do politics. So he picked somebody dumber than him that could not outshine him, right? He picks Joe Biden. And then right. So the second order effect was when Joe Biden's time comes, he picks somebody dumber than him. That's Kamala Harris.
And I think he did it as revenge against Obama.
Exactly, because he hates Obama and he knows Obama hates him. So it's
right.
It's Bongino. It's interesting. Dan Bongino, who was in the Secret Service as a Obama protectee, actually said that they despise each other. That there's no, they're not friendly. They despise each other. Period. and I believe it.
Well, speaking of despise,
I think that's right.
Did you see the clip of Nancy Pelosi has officially broken up with Joe Biden? They are not even talking now after she stabbed him in the back.
She didn't do that. He should be on Mount Rushmore, right?
Well, what strikes me, between the Obama, and if you believe what Seymour Hersh wrote, essentially Obama went to Biden and said, look, you're gonna quit, or else we're going to do the 25th Amendment against you, and you don't even get to finish out your term. Like that's what was presented to Biden. And then if you kind of carry on some of what else has been written about this, Biden's response to that was, okay, fine, you win this round, but then I'm going to endorse Kamala, which you don't want me to do. So this is my revenge on you. So, like, in other words, like, this is just nonstop palace intrigue that brought this about. And so now you have this candidate that they can't even put in front of friendly reporters.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been more than 2 weeks since she got this, and she's like, no press conferences. God, no press conferences. But, like, they won't even give her, some sycophantic CNN or MSNBC talking head to go sit down with her and ask her softball questions about what her favorite color is, because they're afraid of how bad she'll botch those questions.
Right, they're afraid she's going to open her mouth, and the evidence that pointed to that was the hostage. The hostage welcoming at Joint Andrews Air Base. And she started talking about American diplomacy. It was another word salad.
Let me correct you. Because I've been corrected. It is inaccurate to call these word salads. Okay? The correct terminology is word slaw. Because, when you make coleslaw, you run the cabbage through a shredder. And that's what Kamala does to the English language. So you have to call these words slaws and not word salads.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome!
And I think that's right. I think that's correct. These are word slaws, because when she starts talking about unburdened by what was. That
it has been so painful.
In a salad, the ingredients are discernible. That's less true in a slaw.
Well, I think what made me really...
I don't know how you fix this. You can give her a script to read, but the minute when you start taking questions, you can't read a script. You have to actually think and then say, and she can't do it. She's been in politics for a pretty long time, and she's demonstrated that it's not within her capability to just give a conversational, answer to a simple question. Instead, you get this kind of pick your own story, like those old picture books where you choose the words on and make these sentences, and some of them made sense and some of them didn't. That's like all she's capable of. And I don't know how you run that for 3 months between, now and the first week in November. I don't know how that's done.
I'm just waiting for the debate. She can't run from the debate. And that is going to... They're
saying that
she's trying
now. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right, well, what scared me the most...
She won't prepare, though. She won't... she's known for not preparing.
We know that everybody has said that, but it was the picture in the Situation Room. I guess it was yesterday with Blinken. Biden looks like he's half asleep. Kamala's got her hand on her face because she's scared to death. And I'm going, these are the yahoos in charge. And then I saw Blinken, some statement that he was saying, play fair in the sandbox. And now we've had 7, military and civilians injured. And it's I'm scared to death what's going to happen. I mean, who actually is in charge, Scott? I know we're saying Obama, but this is
Obama's in charge.
Scary stuff.
Well, nobody's in charge. Yeah. I mean, it's look, if you heard one word from the U.S. government, from the president or anybody about the financial meltdown in the stock market? Not one word. I've not heard anything.
No. That's it's none of their business at this point. And I don't know what to make of that, but there's nothing really that they can say at this point because, what are you going to do? I mean, they took a stab, yesterday or I guess it was yesterday, at trying to blame this on Trump. You can't really make that stick. And so,
oh my gosh.
The market's a little better today. I mean, people are bargain hunting in the market, and it's back up 500-600 points. But the thing is, everybody understands that this is a recessionary economy, and it's brought about. You got, debt across the board, whether it's the federal government, whether it's state governments, whether it's personal household. Credit card debt through the roof at 27% interest rates and all of these. None of this is sustainable. And what you badly need is a recession, as painful as it might be, to try to clear some of this out. And yet, they certainly can't have one between now and November. So you're going to get, more sugar high economics to go with sugar high politics. And the thing about it is that, from a sugar high, you get a crash. And I don't know that they can hold this off before, where it happens after November. And even if it does, everybody's going to know it's coming. So I don't know that you're going to even get anything out of trying to stave this off with a big interest rate cut or any of that kind of stuff. I was looking, and of course, I'm here in Louisiana. There's this picture, and I guess it had come off of the MLS website in Metairie, which is the suburb just to the west of New Orleans. And there are more than 1,000 houses for sale in Metairie right now, because between property insurance rates and what the mortgage market has done and the overvaluation of houses in the market, everybody's trying to sell their house, and nobody's buying right now. And so you have this massive housing glut that I think is worse in the New Orleans area than elsewhere, but it's starting to happen all over the country. And so if you have a housing crash to go with everything else, this whole thing is going to go down deep. I mean, it's going to be a bad recession. Now, the good news is, typically speaking, the worse the recession is, the better the recovery after the fact. But, if you have a Kamala Harris administration, like these people have been trying to outlaw the business cycle since 2008. And what we've had is just crappy economic growth with, mild recessions. And like there's, it prevents people from actually getting ahead. I mean, in the last 16 years, we've basically had 3 years of any particular quality economically, and it was the first 3 years of Trump being in office. All of which was, he had a tax cut, but most all of it was just deregulating the economy and letting people actually do business. We're 4 years into this, and we've had a complete disaster from the standpoint of actually growing the economy. And they don't have any policies that fixes that. And I think people have caught on. We'll see what this economy actually does between now and November, but I can't imagine it'll do anything good.
Well, there's no way for it to do good because we know what it takes to fix things. Okay, I'm old enough. I remember the high inflation from the 70s and what it took to to break that. I mean, interest rates spiked to 21%. I remember because we was trying to buy a house. It was like, you talk about interest rates. They were talking about 18 and 19% mortgage rates back then. I mean, it was insane. And we know how to fix this. The problem is the Fed is not willing to accept deflation. They have a 2% inflation target. So you've got this whole fundamental problem with the Fed blocking any attempts to kill the inflation we have right now. And the same thing to housing crisis from 2008. Go back and look at the template, 10 years after that, what a mess that was in the housing market, And it's kind of like the same thing.
That's certainly all true.
And until you stop printing money and giving it away to everybody, the fundamentals keep, that's the way the cake works, right? when you mix the ingredients and you bake it, that's what you get.
Well, and one of the lessons that nobody seems to understand that we learned both with Reagan's presidency and with Trump's presidency is that inflation is a function of too much money chasing too few goods and services in the market. And so, there was the high interest rates to try to kill inflation. All of that had actually started before Reagan took office. What Reagan did was deregulate the economy and pass a tax cut that made it easier for people to produce things to meet the demand in the economy. And that, more than anything else, is what actually brought inflation down because there were enough products in the market to bring downward pressure on prices without just depressing the economy, okay? And that started taking hold in 1983, and then, we just blew up and went really great guns economically. That actually happened with Trump, too. If you'll remember, he had his tax cut. They repatriated an enormous amount of capital that had been stored overseas, and he deregulated the economy. And so the productive sector was able to get to work. And then, of course, they locked everything back up with Biden, and the inflation rate, skyrocketed. It was already going to be high because of COVID and what COVID had done to the supply chain and other things. But that should have been a fast thing to recover from. And instead it's lasted, all this time. And of course they're like, well, inflation is back down. And it's like, yeah, but prices are not back down.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
People couldn't afford what you inflated everything to, and they still can't afford it. So now they're paying massive credit card bills based on having to borrow money to make ends meet, and they're paying 27% interest on that. So it doesn't matter that the prices are the same as they were 2 years ago. They still don't have the money to afford anything. And that's why they're scratching their heads saying, well, we don't know why we can't sell Bidenomics. It's like, well, it's not that complicated, guys.
Well, and you have to recognize, the fact that we're an energy-based economy, our standard of living, the cheaper energy is, the better our standard of living is. And I wish people would get that message. And the fact that, that they've done everything they could to stop energy production in the name of Green New Deal or whatever. We hate gas and diesel and everything else. Until we get somebody like Trump that gets in there and does the Sarah Palin drill baby drill, and we become energy independent and become a supplier to the world again, and we can do it. Then our economy will start recovering, I think, at that point. But
even when they do claim that they're trying to produce energy, you're doing it in the way that is the most corrupt and inefficient possible. Like, for example, I had, back in, I guess it was late June, I had to take a road trip from Tampa back to Baton Rouge, and I'm driving on I-10. Okay, I hit Lake City and turn off 75, and I'm going west on I-10. I couldn't believe the number of solar farms I saw along I-10.
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, I know, and I'm looking like it's all the way to the horizon, and I'm like, this is like good farmland that's being, turned into these, it's just miles of Chinese solar panels. And that this is not producing electricity at a rate that would be economic, but for government subsidies. Like, this is not real energy. Like, drilling for natural gas gets you real energy, right? Nuclear power would be real energy. Like, this is just, like a government subsidy for, spin the roulette wheel for what purposes? Solar panels. And, you can't blame the landowners for putting that on their land because they've done the math, and it's like, well, this is what the government will pay, and it's more than we can make raising, growing sugarcane or whatever. And so, this is what you get. But, like, that's not sustainable, and it's not even good for the environment, because what are you going to do with those solar panels when they wear out, right? You can't – there's no economic or environmentally sound way to dispose of that. Meanwhile, you've turned farmland into solar panels. And so every aspect of this is just bad news. And it's basically government corruption, because if you're the politician that gives this stuff out, then, you've bought people who are going to give you kickbacks forever. And that underlies practically everything the modern Democrat Party does. It's like a massive smash and grab operation. And they call you names if you start nosing around into it, right? I mean, if you say, hey, Kamala Harris's energy policy is a disaster, which is true. What you get is, you're a racist and sexist for criticizing Kamala Harris. And it's like, nice try, but that's not really what we're talking about.
Trump, Scott, back to Trump and Vance. Were you happy with the Vance pick? Let me ask you that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What I'll say is the last few days, he's started to really hit his stride on the campaign trail. And like J.D. Vance is straight fire when he gets up there to talk now. Like when he did, I don't know if you saw it. I don't know where he was. He was in Philadelphia or maybe it was in Atlanta. And he launched into this thing about loyalty. And I'm sure you've probably seen that. This video clip is everywhere. When he starts talking about what loyalty is, what loyalty to America is. And I mean, it's just this brutal indictment of Kamala Harris. It's fabulous. I mean, like that clip alone is a web ad that blows the doors off of everything.
Well,
so he's good. He's very talented, but that's not actually the reason that I really like him. What I like about J.D. Vance is that by picking Vance, and the detractors to Vance told you this story, Trump foreclosed any possibility that he would make the same mistake Reagan did in 1980 when he put George H.W. Bush on the ticket as his VP. Because when Reagan was done after the 1988 elections and Bush took over, he destroyed practically everything that was good about Reagan's legacy.
Yep.
And you needed so badly, and you didn't get it with Mike Pence, obviously. What you needed so badly was a repudiation of stupid party Bush republicanism this, where they turned peace through strength into endless wars, when they turned, the social conservatism that was part of Reagan's three-legged stool into just abject failure and retreat on all fronts. And when, free market economics became quote unquote free trade with China, like all of the three-legged stool basically got destroyed between 1988 and 2012. And you had to have Trump come along to save the GOP, because it was, at that point, it had failed miserably. It was a completely irrelevant party. So you've now got basically the MAGA movement has taken over the GOP. And by locking Vance in as his VP candidate, you have now solidified that and told the Bush Republican crowd, no, this is not going to be your party going forward. Like you screwed up and you lost it. And that was necessary because you had run the party into the ground. And Vance signifies that, and it is the best gift that Trump could give the GOP at this point, particularly if he's able to win, which I think he will. It's another 4 years, and by then I don't know how the Bush Republicans are going to survive as a viable faction within the party, as repudiated as they've been.
So I think you hit on a really good one there, Scott, because I used to be heavily involved in the state party politics here in Florida, Republican Party politics, and I had a theory probably around 2016, 17. It looked to me like the party was going to split. I thought we were going to end up with two Republican parties because the conservative people despise the Bushies, and the Bushies are a big factor here in Florida with Jeb Bush. And and
Jeb was the best of them. I mean, the guy actually did a really good job as governor of Florida, but that brand of politics at the national level is a failure.
Yep.
Right? It's like, look, this is the reason that Trump came along in the first place, was because you had the Tea Party, which was an attempt to revive whatever populist or even popular support the Republican Party had. And the people in charge of the party decided to co-opt it and force it down. And when Obama used the IRS to destroy all these Tea Party organizations, there was absolutely no one within the Republican establishment who stood up and fought for him. They were happy to have that happen. And of course, then they install Romney as the nominee, who could have won that race because enough people wanted to get rid of Obama, but he didn't have the stones to do it, and his consultants were an abject disaster. And after that 2012 cycle, those people needed to be deposed from the higher echelons of the GOP. That had to happen. In the same vein that the old Northeastern liberals, were deposed from the ranks of the leadership of the Democrat Party by Bill Clinton and the New Democrats in the 92 cycle, and then managed to sneak back in 2004 with John Kerry as their standard bearer, and got smoked in the 2004 election, and then they were completely put away by the Obama faction. So this has happened to the Democrats, and they're a different party for it. You have to have it happen to the Republicans, because Obamanism, I'll call it, the Obama faction of the Democrats is built to destroy Bush Republicanism. Okay? It's built to do that. And so you cannot continue to run that against those people. You have to have something else, which is more populist, which is more activist, which is more willing to go on offense and remoralize the American people after they've been demoralized by whatever insane left-wing aggressions you have, whether it's transgenderism or, the full-on assault on Christianity, or, all various other things that they do along the lines of woke stuff. I mean, that's poison for traditional Americans. Like, they don't even want to live here anymore. And so you have to have something that at least promises them, look, we're going to fight this off and bring the country back to something that you can live in. Like that, they'll vote for it. They're not going to vote for Bush Republicanism anymore because they already know it fails. They're like, okay, I'm going to give you guys another 4 years to run the country, and the next thing I know, it's going to be normalization of pedophilia. because it's what the left wants, and you won't fight it. And once you've lost that much faith with the American people, you have no story to tell. And so, like, all of this is like an exposition of why it was important for Trump to pick somebody like Vance as his VP candidate, and not a Nikki Haley or, you know, somebody who was clearly in that Bush Republican camp.
So do you think the Republican part, the Trump Republican Party has transformed who we are into basically what I'll call the 1950s and 60s Democrat, the working class man's party, you know, because it seems like the union leadership is behind the Democrats, but the union rank and file seem to be falling in behind Trump. They're very popular with Trump. So it's almost like, you know, and then the country club, the rich people, the Wall Streeters are all now Democrats as opposed to being Republicans. So it's almost like we've had this fundamental shift between,
I don't know
the
about that, because
low
I think
and high.
Wall Streeters, once they start paying taxes, they are Republican, John.
No, the stuff I was reading this week in the Journal about Kamala Harris's friends on Wall Street, they're behind her with the big money.
Well, I think one of the dynamics here is it's not even so much money, although money does play a little bit of a factor of it. It's sort of like a credentialism, right? Because the left has so dominated these prestige institutions, whether it's the Ivy League colleges or some of these Wall Street banks and like a lot of these kind of high-end cultural and economic institutions that have gone woke. And really the woke piece is basically a direct war against the middle class and the working class. Again, this is something else that I blame the Bush Republicans for, right? They turned capitalism into corporatism, and then they watched all the corporations go woke. And so, like, these guys tend to be, they're Democrat, and the middle managers in these corporations who don't have any place to go, because in so many economic sectors, you don't have small and mid-sized companies that are growing because of the way the economy's been overregulated. And I would even say that what we have now is a fascist economy, like along the lines of the old Italian fascists who, really like the idea of having a few companies together with the unions and the government bureaucrats get together and figure out how to run the economy. Like, that's the Italian fascist model. It's also the FDR New Deal model. And as it happens, it's the Obama model. There was this, and I have this in Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, which is my book that I did last year on Obama and the effect he's had on the country.
And we love that book.
Veronica, you'll remember this when I talk about it. There's this dinner that Obama has with a bunch of these prestige historians, the Michael Beschlosses and the Doris Kearns Goodwins of the world. He sits them all down at the White House, and they're basically having this dinner to talk about what a wonderful historic figure Obama is going to be as president. And at this dinner, one of the things that he says is that he likes an economy that is governed from the top. And, this was the first year he was president, and it was telling that every year Obama was president, there were fewer businesses extant in America than the year before. Okay. So he decimates small business. He makes mid-sized businesses into something basically those were just farm teams. They were looking for some big corporation to come buy them out because it was so hard to turn a mid-sized business into a big business based on all the regulatory policy that Obama put in place. And you gutted a capitalist economy, and you become essentially an oligopoly. Well, one of the things that happens is if you're caught on with XYZ Corporation and there's 5 companies in the sector you're in and nobody else is of any size that's even moving up, you're stuck in a middle management job. And if you ever want to move up, you're going to have to go through all of the diversity seminars and all of the garbage that HR is going to put you through to qualify you to move up into the upper echelons of the company. And so these guys have no choice but to go do the whole corporate woke thing. And that was something that Obama did to America. And, what needs to happen in the worst way, particularly in the tech sector, but also in the media sector and a bunch of other places, is, you need antitrust. You need to break these companies up and reintroduce some real competition in the market. Because if you have 15 different companies, some of them are woke and some of them aren't. And then there's a place for everybody to move up into. So in other words, what you have is you have these people that are stuck in these institutions. And if they want to move up, they have to adopt all the pieties that the woke left is imposing on them. And the people that aren't, compelled to do that tend to be middle class and working class. And so, they still hold to traditional American values and principles. And so they vote Republican. They got no place to go. And they have changed the Republican Party. Trump is the guy who popularized all this and had a message to do it. But these people all voted in the GOP primary in 2016 and created this movement, because I'll point out that the people who didn't vote for Trump, most of them voted for Ted Cruz, who was offering pretty much the same thing. I mean, Cruz was an iconoclast the same way Trump was. He just didn't have the cultural cachet that Trump had. But the vast majority of the GOP was looking for the biggest departure from, John McCain, Mitt Romney, George W. Bush that they could find. I mean, I'm saying this because I was on Cruz's team initially. And then, when Trump got the nomination, I voted against Hillary. And then, of course, over the next 4 years, I was like, hey, this guy actually is fulfilling some of his promises. That's different. And, that's how I decided I liked Trump. But the point was, it was the voters in the GOP that demanded that Bush Republicanism be pushed off to the side.
Well, do you think that November we're going to be able to take it all back? I mean, for me, there was definitely the assassination attempt. I went to a party that night, right before it right after it happened, and I'm telling you, it changed people that night that were not paying attention, Scott.
I think that's right. I'm of two minds. I think if we have a free and fair election, I think you're going to see what happened to Dukakis in 1988 is what's going to happen to Kamala Harris. Okay, you're on this sugar high thing now. There's no substance underlying any of this on their side, and I think she fades. And I think that Trump wins comfortably and probably has some coattails. That's if it's a free and fair election. But what tempers my optimism is what I've seen of Obama Democrats, which is these people don't accept losing. They escalate rather than accept losing. And so I'm really concerned between now and November, if it starts looking like, this thing isn't stealable or winnable from their standpoint, I'm really concerned as to what we get. And if Trump wins, and I think if he wins, you're going to have the House and the Senate too. So you'll have not necessarily a unified government, but at least you'll have the ability to get judges confirmed and laws passed and budgets passed and all this other stuff. I'm really concerned as to what happens on the streets, because we already know what they're capable of, and I think they're capable of more. And that really scares me, particularly given all of these people who've come across the border who are not vetted. We know nothing about them. They come from places which are, not friendly to us. You've got tens of thousands of Chinese military-age males that have come across the border here being facilitated by the Chinese government. That's not good. So people there's tens of thousands of people from Mauritania that are here. How does that even happen? And all of that scares the hell out of me.
I'm scared, but I feel like we're sick of woke. I mean, Tractor Supply, John Deere, the Olympics. I haven't watched Olympics since that debacle opening ceremony, and I feel bad for the athletes because there's some excellent athletes, but I feel like we can't take it anymore. But then I'm concerned because today, researching darling Tampon Tim, he has given illegals, licenses.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he allowed his cities to burn down. So I'm like petrified because I think they're going to try to steal it, and then I'm exhausted from what, John?
And they're registering these people to vote too, by the way, illegally registering them to vote.
How do we fight back? I mean, Freedom Florida, we have it going on, and Governor DeSantis has already come out today saying what a nightmare this governor is, and why did she choose him? I honestly thought it might be Pete Buttigieg was going to be the guy, and that could have been better actually.
Yeah. I think they wanted to do that, and they realized they really couldn't make that fly, but. What I would say is look, I mean, I'm in Louisiana, you guys are in Florida. We don't have anything to worry about as to whether or not we're going to win our states on the GOP side. It's probably going to be close to 60-40 in both states. So I think all of that is fine, but in these 6 or 7, maybe there might be more swing states than that, which is a good thing. I think it's money. I think it's, it's phone calls to friends that live there. It's, it's a lot of good old fashioned political activism that needs to be brought to the table. We have to match the other side in activity, and, activity is what they're good at. Obama has changed the Democrat Party. They no longer try to persuade persuadable people anymore. What they're really about is it's community activism. It's community organizing. And that's the base of their party. And the whole point is that works if you can do a straight turnout election, but when most of the country doesn't believe in what you're doing, that may not work. And so, the real question is, and a lot of this is going to be on the Trump campaign, to manage this thing right and to do the right things. I don't think they can steal the election if they're way down in the polls. Okay. I think if Trump is up 5 points in Georgia, these ward bosses in Fulton County are probably not going to stick their neck out to go get another 10,000 votes. Because that, the more of that you do, the easier it is to get caught. Yeah, exactly. Well,
and then I wanted to ask you back to the assassination attempt. I mean, well, number one, in this administration, you can kill people and you still have your job. Nobody gets fired, and the Cheadle took forever to get rid of that pompous ass woman. Do you think it was an inside job? Because the whole thing, all of these facts, the guy running on the roof that we've seen, I mean, I just have so many questions, and I'm just so concerned that they're still going to try to take out Trump.
So I would offer up the analogy of a crab trap. Okay. And you guys are in Florida. I'm in Louisiana. We know about crab traps. Yeah. You put a crab trap down, you bait the trap and you put it down, and you leave it, right? Because you don't have to do anything, and you know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the crabs are going to come and they're going to feed on the bait. And when you pick the trap up, you will have crabs, right? I think that if you go back through if you did a forensic examination of the security coverage of all of these Trump events that we've had prior to Butler, you're going to find gaping holes in the coverage for each one of them. And you're going to find the same kind of crap, Secret Service saying, well, this is the locals' responsibility, and the locals saying, you didn't tell us it was our response. You're going to find something like that in all of these different places. In other words, it was just a matter of time before a crab walked into the trap. Now, it could have been worse than that, okay? It certainly could have been worse. And it could have been that somebody groomed this guy as an assassin. I'm not even going to get into all of that because at the end of the day, you don't need it. You've got the political class and the media class on the Democrat side doing what the folks at the Federalist have been calling assassination prep, right? Laying the ground. This guy is Hitler. He's a dictator on day one. It'll be the last election that we ever have. Like, that is designed to gin up the crazies to try and take the guy out. Then on the back end, you leave holes in the coverage so that somebody with the motive then has the opportunity. And I think that that's a fairly safe assumption, given all of the requests for additional security that were turned down and all of the other things that, here they go and they book Jill Biden to have a garden party somewhere in Pittsburgh, right, and she gets 12 Secret Service members, whereas Trump only gets 4 for a 50,000 person outdoor event, and they're bringing in temps from the DHS temp pool to fill out the coverage. I mean, like, the whole thing is very smelly. I don't know if it's an active plot. I think it might just be a crab trap.
Okay.
Well, the interesting part on that, Scott, was, last Friday, the current director of the Secret Service, who, by the way, was the one that actually turned down the request for more assets, okay? Let's start with that piece, okay? That's very ironic that he's in charge now. But he actually admitted during the press conference this was the first Trump rally where they had a counter-sniper team from the Secret Service. I was shocked when I heard that. They just happened to be there. This was the first time they'd sent them. And if not for that, this guy would have wreaked havoc because there wasn't going to be any counter sniper teams.
Well, there's obviously something wrong with the Secret Service because now they're saying this weekend too about the cocaine that Cheadle tried to have it destroyed. And I guess there's a DNA link now on there, and I'm like, is it Hunter? And that woman is obviously, they're saying that Dr. Jill put her forward to be the lead. It's just everything's so dirty. Oh, it's just so dirty and disgusting.
Well, don't forget all the January 6th radio chatter recordings or whatever it was that got thrown away because all of that would have disproven everything that they said about Trump supposedly, including this whatever her name was, Cassidy Hutchinson or whatever that made up this story about Trump trying to grab the steering wheel on the. Which was an idiotic story to begin with, but the whole point is, there would have been direct Secret Service refutation of that, and the whole thing would have looked stupid. And yet they hid all of that. Everything about this is dirty, dirty, dirty. And it's no longer some conspiracy theory or some unreasonable, fantasy for somebody to start to question, hey, was there an active plot to get this guy? I think a passive plot is more than enough to make the argument. And I wrote this in King of the Jungle, when the Trumpian character gets shot because the dirty Secret Service people leave the opening. The thing that the Trumpian character does is fires the Secret Service and goes all private with his security. Okay.
And
I wrote, that's what Trump should do.
We have to bring it back to King of the Jungle on Amazon. We've been talking with Scott McKay. So will I relax? Will I relax reading this book? I have to ask.
Well, you'll kill it in an afternoon, and it's a very fun ending. So, I don't want to give too much away, but you'll leave with a smile on your face. Although people who've read the book will tell me, it's like, this got my blood pressure up because it hit pretty close to home for most of the book. But it does end on a sanguine note, and that I'm at least happy to offer.
And Scott, we've been talking with Scott McKay. We've got to have you back because, as you see, an hour flew by, and
sure, anytime.
I'd love to do an X Space with you as well because we've got to do this in the evening when we can get the whole world tuning in. And the last X Space I did, a liberal jumped on, and it was quite hysterical, I have to say, because they hate us, But it's been such a pleasure talking to Scott McVeigh. His new book, King of the Jungle, you can find him on Amazon, and then you're on X, The Hayride, and you're fun to follow on X. So, Scott, it's been such a pleasure having you on Veronica Live.
Well, thanks a lot for having me, and let's do it again soon.
Okay. Thanks for joining Veronica Live.